This Hangout on Air is live. Welcome. Good morning. Happy Friday. Let's see those guns. Come on, flex them.
My arms are getting tired.
Workout of the day complete. Check.
All right, so here's the deal. Real quick, bottom line. Today's topic, it's Q&A. So I've got the Q&A feature on. So anybody who's watching, you should see the thing. You may need to refresh your page on the Google Plus event page to post your questions. But based on the pre-game show, it looks like, at least initially, we're going to be talking about promotional products, T-sheets, T-shirts, T-sheets coffee mugs, Nerd Enterprises pens, and as I said before we went live, if I get really energized, I might go grab a Nerd Enterprises T-shirt, and I'll look for one to send to Jesse today.
Can't wait.
I got my T-sheets representation going on here.
That's really cute. What is that?
I got T-sheets.
This is Fergal. Fergal eats CDs, and he keeps them in his belly.
What an awesome toy. Yes, you are a nerd.
So my wife got this for me a long time ago, and she said it reminded her of me because he looked like a happy monster. So, and believe it or not, I still listen to CDs in my car because I bought the car before it was, pretty much now I think you walk into a dealership, get a new car, it's going to have a built-in MP3 player type setup. This was before that was available. So I still listen to CDs in my car, but it's funny because I haven't bought a CD in a very long time. So it's like when I'm in my car, I'm listening to like older music, which is fine.
Yeah, it was funny when so Matt Rissell, our CEO, he's a pilot, and so we flew down a few weeks ago.
I saw that. That was so cool, but I was disappointed you guys didn't tell me you were here in California.
I know. It was on a last minute, super quick trip. But he was like, you know what, if you guys want music, you're going to have to bring your own CDs because the only CDs we have in there are like, it was like 80s country, which isn't bad, right? But there was just
no, country is bad no matter what decade it's from.
It was more entertaining than anything just to listen to it. But I went through and I'm like, where are all my CDs? Because I haven't used them for so long. I know they're probably in the garage somewhere and probably pull out some really good ones. But when anybody says I bought a CD, I can't help but judge them a little bit.
You still sell those?
The thing is, I know this is going to like date me. This is going to date me and make me sound really old, but I really actually miss going to like the Virgin Megastore here in Hollywood and just going there and buying CDs and actually being present with other live humans. Just kind of walking around, searching. It's kind of boring now. Like, I'm just going to go on Spotify and find something and add it to a playlist. It's not the same. The experience is so much more shallow and superficial now than it used to be. Like, I used to get so into like the artists and the album artwork and all this stuff. I'd buy the CDs. I couldn't wait to open them and pull out the little jackets and read everything that was in there. I used to love that. That was like such a part of the ritual, and it's just all dead now.
Well, not to date myself, but I used to buy LPs, 33 and a third LPs.
What about 8-tracks?
I had those for a while, and then it went to cassettes, and then CDs, and now it's like MP3s.
Yeah. So I guess we're all
the Walkmans. Does anybody remember the portable like that?
I had a Walkman. Yeah.
Of course. In high school, I used to walk around with my headset on all the time with my Walkman. I would make mixtapes by recording off of the radio. Like a song would come on, I'd recognize the intro, and boom, I'd hit record, and that's how we used to make mixtapes. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. No, I had one I found going through some old things called Jesse's Master Mix, and I held on to it for a few years because I had nothing to play this tape on, right? So then finally, a couple years ago, I bought an older car that had a tape deck, and I put it in, and I was like immediately transported back. I knew every song, and then some of them I'm like, oh, I'm interested why this made the cut. It was so random, but how fun. Those master mixes.
What's funny is when I bought my Highlander, it was in 2007. It was a 2008 Highlander that I bought in 2007, I think, and it still had a tape deck. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I even said to the salesperson, I was like, really, a tape deck? Like, does anybody use these anymore?
They probably have this big stockpile of tape decks, and they're just like, you know what? We're just going to put them in everything until they're gone. We don't want to see them anymore. We don't know what else to do with them.
Yeah, and you know, what's funny is I had such a huge collection. Like, it would probably be worth something today with all the '80s music that I had in it, because I was like an avid music buyer and collector, and I had this huge collection. And when I moved to California, and I was packing up my apartment in New York. And there was a lot of stuff going on at the time. It was actually a very emotional time for me. I had to make a quick split decision because I really didn't have the space as I was loading cars up to decide what to keep. So all these, it was like my brother looked at me. He was helping me move, and kind of like, what do you want me to do with this? Like, there's nowhere to put it. And I like hesitated for a second, and then finally I was like, fine. And we just carried it over to the dumpster that was near my apartment, and just boom, all of it just gone in a second. I so regret that moment. It's one of the few moments in my life that I can honestly say I have true regrets about.
Wow.
Throwing away my '80s collection. I had Flock of Seagulls. I had all kinds of the Ramones. I had so much stuff in there, and then probably, at least 150 different mixtapes that I made, because like I would always have my radio playing when I was in my bedroom. As soon as a song came on, boom, record, and I had the little boom box that you'd carry around.
Well, I think that's why I enjoy Spotify so much, and it took me a while to get into it because I was a big Pandora fan forever. But then my husband, he was like, no, you got to do Spotify, and to create those playlists, be able to share it, and virtually access any song, and then to see everybody else's playlists, like that is so cool.
See, I do both.
Not the same, but
I go both ways. I do Spotify and Pandora, and how I use them, how I distinguish how I use them. Spotify, yes, I create the playlist. Unfortunately, it can be time consuming to sit there and create those playlists, and sometimes I don't have the time, or I just don't have the patience. So Pandora is what I'll listen to, and I'm just like, find the music for me. But when something comes on Pandora that I really like, I immediately go search for it on Spotify, and then I add it to a playlist, and then Spotify is what I use for my like workout mixes, because I love that. I have my Bluetooth headset on when I get on the treadmill, and I just crank it up, and I go into oblivion.
Well, you should check out the radio feature in Spotify.
I don't like the way it picks. I think Pandora has a better picker than Spotify Radio.
I agree.
Yeah?
Yeah. My husband said that, some sort of radio, I guess it's with iTunes, or there's another radio that we have, and so we set that up. And I like Pandora because if a good song comes on, I can click on the lyrics and sing along.
Oh, that's true.
It'll be on my right monitor, and I'll be working, especially, everybody's gone, and I'll crank up the Pandora, and I can sing my heart out. But then on the other app, even to find out what the album is, it's a real pain. So no, I like my Pandora, but I haven't looked at Spotify. Does it do that? Show the
yes,
lyrics?
you can look at all the albums and a little biography, and some artists have more than others. You can follow artists, which I really love. So if there's new music that's come out, they'll tell you.
I like setting up the genres, and then it'll suggest artists in the same genre, and I've really found all kinds of artists that I didn't know.
Yes, and Spotify does that too. No, I love Pandora as well, and sometimes you can't be on two places at once with Spotify, so I'll choose.
You know what? My new favorite thing about Spotify is they've been creating their own playlists that you can follow based on they have different genres and moods, and so I'll go into that a lot. Like they have I actually saved it as a playlist of my own now. It's like a coffee house mix. And then they have, they have all kinds of stuff. They have, where did it go? I have Spotify up on my other screen now. So it's, you go to Browse on Spotify, and then you have across the top Overview, Top List, and then there's Genres and Moods. I love that area right there, the Genres and Moods. And then within that you go to Mood. That's one of my favorites, and they just have all different ones. They have like a work time playlist, and The first one that comes up is your favorite coffee house. There's Songs for Sunsets. Smart as the New Sexy. Deep Focus is one that I love to listen to while I'm working. And they kind of give you descriptions, and that's what it's, you know,
What,
they say.
what kind of music's on that? Is it instrumental?
No, it's
It's kind of some ambient, some like softer modern, but then some instrumental, and that's what it's so cool is you are discovering, like Pandora, but it just seems like there's this, like if you like that type of music and then you've got the whole playlist with it, you'll hear bands and artists that you're just like, who are these people? Like, how come I've never heard them before? And it's just, yeah, the radio anymore is so limiting. It's just hard to
So
look.
if I don't want to spend the time to set up Spotify playlists, can I see yours and just use yours?
You can follow Seth and see what he's listening to.
That's
If he
good.
shares a playlist, you can add it to yours, and
Huh.
yeah.
Might be some other toy.
Is this an infomercial for Spotify? Are we gonna get some free?
Hey, we need swag, man.
What I also enjoy, and I know that Seth's talked about this before, is you can save playlists to play offline. So you may not be streaming, but you can download it to your phone and then have a list that you play. So everybody's in the dark.
Yeah. Where does Seth go?
I don't know. Sarah, how are you? It's so good to hear you.
I'm hanging, man.
Good. Your tree.
Still
That
here.
crazy
I'm still
storm.
here. Oh gosh, the storms every single day. We're getting all of Seth's rain. I wish we could just pick it up and send it to California.
I know. I
The
know.
flooding is unreal, and I've never seen it like this.
Mm.
You know,
Okay,
every
that was fun.
couple years we'll have like those afternoon storms like Florida has, but this is they're so violent,
Yeah.
and the rain is just unreal. And I am surrounded by 100-foot pine trees and massive oaks, and when the oaks get waterlogged, they go over. So that one missed the house, so it's a good week.
That was quite a picture, though.
Oh man. Oh gosh, that would have been not good. But one of these pine trees would slice the house in half.
Scary. They are big.
But it costs like $1,200 to take one pine tree out. So I could go bankrupt trying to get them away from the house.
Yeah.
That's all up and down the East Coast, I think, Sarah. A lot of it's happening here, too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we've been getting rain, which is really odd for Idaho in August.
Are you in the drought situation that California is, or is it just...
No, we had a really good snow year, and usually that fills up the rivers, and it seems like it's been, and I wouldn't know for sure, even the fire season has not been that bad, and usually you can indicate how dry it is by the fires going on, and so, but I'm a little out of the loop. I don't follow the local news as I used to, but I feel like it's been.
That's probably smart.
I know.
You're happier.
Much.
I wish you could just pick up the weather from the east and just give it to the west.
I know, poor California.
Yeah, really, right? I feel like it's October here in Pennsylvania today.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool for a normal, yeah.
Yeah, we're still at 92.
I think Seth is having technical difficulties. Are you with us,
Can you
Seth?
hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, yay.
So, yeah, the same thing that was happening the other day. For some reason, this is the latest thing now. When I try to share my screen on a Hangout, it crashes Chrome, and it kicks me out. I don't know what's going on.
You may have to uninstall and reinstall Chrome.
Yeah, or
Chrome
or Google Talk. The extension probably has to be reinstalled.
Right.
But very, very annoying. It's funny because when it works, it's like the coolest technology ever, but it's so incredibly unreliable that it's like, it wouldn't take much, I don't think, for somebody to come out with a competitive tool. Like if Skype would make their multi-user thing free, that would work, but Skype lacks the social network side of it, which is what makes Google Plus and Hangouts combined so nice, because you have this community that you can sort of use to invite people in. So
can't you get 10 free on Skype now? Don't they have like 10 free seats or whatever?
no, you can do a one-on-one video chat, but as soon as you want more than that, you got to pay.
Oh, 'cause I thought they'd change that.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah, I
So-
wish we'd had Hangout back when we got married a couple of years ago, because we used Skype to bring Mark's parents in from. We had the laptop in the first pew.
Yeah, it's perfect for that.
Yeah, it was awesome. The people that couldn't travel. Yeah.
Did you say you had him in the first pew?
A laptop. We had a laptop in the
Oh, they were
first.
watching.
That's really funny.
And we had to, and we had to put in Wi-Fi and all this stuff at the church.
No.
Well, they certainly did benefit from that.
Yeah,
then.
they did. So, but my husband's IT, so, you know, just labor and parts. So yeah, because yeah, it was fun. Amazing.
So, Dennis, what do you got? What's the accounting's dirty secret that we want to talk about?
Basically, that clients don't want to pay to have clean books just for getting the IRS off their back because they perceive that it costs more than what they would be taxed, what they would owe in taxes, and that in order to get around this, you basically have to focus on what they're concerned about, which is cash flow and getting new clients, and sort of how relating clean books back to that.
Yeah, it was a great article. Great article.
I agree with that. I have a hard time getting my clients to realize the benefits of having clean books. But I think once they get a little bit older, they start seeing benefits, like the first time they have to go to the bank and ask for a loan, all of a sudden it becomes important.
You get laughed out of the bank.
Or their CPA has to charge them for recompiling or fixing before it can even do the tax return. So it looks like the tax return is outrageously expensive.
I was brought in by a CPA a few years ago to work with a client who hadn't filed a tax return in several years, and he didn't really care. He didn't care about the numbers. He didn't care to analyze. He didn't want to look. He didn't need financing from the bank or any of that. So he openly admitted he did not care about having a P&L that he could look at to see how much money he made, as long as the money was coming into the bank, and it was. So his contention was, why do I have to pay you accountants all this money to put my books together? I'd rather just let the IRS take a stab at what I owe them and pay that, right? Because that's what the IRS will do that. The IRS will make an assessment, and they'll say, based on similar businesses in your industry and what data we do have, they're just going to assess you a tax liability and make you pay it. So
penalties and interest.
And his feeling was that it would cost him more to pay the accountants to clean it all up and get him, but that by the time we were done putting all his books together and what we would charge him for that to come up with what he really did owe the IRS, it would only shift the amount from the amount owed to the IRS to accounting fees. So the way he felt, he was like not going to make any difference to him. He'd rather just, plus I think he didn't want the stress and the headaches of the whole process, so he said, just tell me what I owe and I'll write a check. I don't care. Which is just, I thought that was hysterical. And I was like, you don't want to know what you're making? And because the other funny part about this particular situation was, he had no real concept of what was going on money-wise. He had a guy working for him who managed it all, and they had real estate. So they had a lot of rental properties and money coming in, and this other guy was handling it all. So it was hard to bring it up properly because the other guy was in the room with us, but I desperately wanted to say to him, how do you know he's not ripping you off?
Right.
And to be very honest, I suspected the guy probably was. Both of these guys seem so shady anyway. So
and the IRS is gonna do what's beneficial for them, not him.
Yeah, the IRS, if they can't figure out your books, they'll do something for you and you won't like it. Guaranteed.
Yeah, as soon as you have somebody else managing all your money for you and there's not a proper set of books, that in itself is a big, huge red flag. But I imagine it's true that there are people out there that, when they start caring, like you said, when they go to the bank and the bank says, okay, we need some information before we're just going to loan you money, or when the money runs out, when it dries up, when all of a sudden there is no money, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, where did it all go?
Yeah, and when you're dealing with big sums of money like that, you may not know until all of a sudden, boom, you're in the red.
Well, and this is a guy, mind you, who, and they told us this right in the meeting, right in front of us. One of the guys, I remember saying that he would walk around with like a check for $400,000 in his shirt pocket, and it was like no big deal to him. And then when he would finally go to the bank, he would cash it and get a suitcase full of cash. He didn't like to keep his money in the bank.
Wow.
And when we asked him and we said, "Do you realize what a potential liability? I mean, you lose that, it's gone. You can't trace it." He's like, and his response was, "Oh, I like abundance." And I'm just like, "Oh, God, keep the abundance in the bank."
Liability he is also up against his life. Somebody knows he has $400,000 in a suitcase. He's got a lot of liability walking out of that bank to his car.
I thought about it. I'm like, all right, let me see where he banks. I'll wait until the next time he walks out, and I'll have a club with me.
I don't know if I told you, I had a meeting with the potential client. They were selling these equipment that were used for like marijuana pipes. It could be adapted for that. Anyway, he said, "Well, by the way, I'm a marijuana grower. Would you like to do my books?" And I did some research, and you can't open up a bank account if you are in the marijuana business. And so
Even if you have a legal dispensary?
No, you can't. The federal bank laws will not allow that. I mean, in the state of Washington.
So it's all cash. Wow,
Yeah.
I heard that somewhere. Yeah.
And even worse, you can't deduct operating expenses. You can only deduct cost of goods sold. You can't deduct, so you're going to overpay your taxes, but you're going to have a lot of cash. You're going to.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's an issue with them. I think they have a lot of cash.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like trying to, an all-cash business, pay everything in cash, and.
So wait, you said you can't deduct operating expenses?
Yeah, it's a federal.
Classify it all as cost of goods sold.
Yep. I did some research on that because I was talking to some of my colleagues in my CPA group, and I said I was, wondering if I should even consider taking them on as a client. I thought, no. Doesn't sound like a good idea, so I didn't.
I had a guy call me up, just off the internet, who, as it turns out, ran a head shop. Which those are the shops that sell the paraphernalia that you use to smoke the marijuana. Right. And of course, they put all the signs up there that saying, of course, this is only for tobacco. Those are funny.
Well, when I look at a potential new client, I have to think of the risk of subpoena. Because earlier in my career, when you're just taking work because you got to live, and when that day comes when you get roped into their nightmare, it really takes a toll on you. I mean, even if you get paid for it, the stress and the time away from work and time away from other clients, it's not worth it, even if they pay you well. And I've learned to just there's so much work out there. There's no reason to. I had one guy show up, and I'm glad I had the sense to just feel what his attitude on things. But I sometimes I just get a burst of confidence. But so he's telling me all about his operation and all that, and I just made a point to say, all right, there are many different kinds of accountants. There's a lot of gray areas, and there's conservative and there's liberal. I said, look, I am by the book. I am by the book. So if you're not by the book, I'm not the accountant for you. And I say, oh, I'll talk to you tomorrow, and I can't wait to get a quote. Never heard from him again. So, don't tell me to.
I've had some very interesting client meetings. In fact, one as recently as last week, I met with a client who we're discussing his business, and he's asking me about deductions. And of course, like everybody, he wants to make sure he can take all the deductions he can take and doesn't want to overpay taxes. And so of course I'm telling him, look, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I can show the deductions that I can show, and when we take all your income and we subtract all your deductions, when we get your net income, that's what it is. That's what you pay taxes on. And because he says to me, well, if it's like $200,000, we're not on the same page. And I'm like, okay, then we're not on the same page, but all I can do is put the books together based on what's right and accurate. So then he says to me, well, also I take a lot of cash withdrawals out of the business. And I said, great. I said, the way we handle cash withdrawals is very simple because we don't know what the money will be spent on. It comes out as a shareholder distribution, and when you come back with receipts, we'll book the expenses and show that back in as a contribution. Very, very simple process. I just need the receipts to show what you spent the money on. But I can't assume that when you took cash out that it was all business. And I said, I need to know how to break that up. I said, so just bring me back receipts. So he says, what if I don't have receipts? And I said, you got to do the best you can to come up with something that supports what it was spent on, because if we get audited, it's not going to hold. You know, it's going to get kicked out, and you're going to not only pay the taxes on it then, but you'll pay the penalties and interest on what you didn't pay because you owed it before. And I said, so that's going to cost you probably more than what you'll save by taking the deduction in the first place. And it'll open up a can of worms, because when they see that, they're going to want to audit every year. They can go back. What is it, 3 years they can go back, Dennis?
They can go back 6 if they suspect.
If they suspect fraud.
No,
right.
No, it's if you understate your income by 20%, you can go back 6 years. If they suspect fraud, you know, it's no limits.
And there is no limit. Right. So then he says to me, well, and this is the funny part. He says, he says, well, here's the thing. He says, some of the stuff I spend money on, I just can't get receipts. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you know, there's always some kind of a document out there. He's like, well, let's just say I like to have fun. And so on the way out of the meeting, when I'm walking back to my car, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, just ask the hookers to write you up a receipt.
Yeah, make up a business use for that.
Yeah, sexual service provider.
Entertainment. Bring a client with you.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, get a receipt.
Seen it all, haven't we?
So, yeah, I get some interesting ones. And then another one this week asks me, this guy's an accountant, actually, and he was asking me for guidance about, you know, taking on clients and growing his accounting business. And he was asking me about taking on clients who, you know, do a lot of things in cash and don't want to report it all. And it was so funny because I told him very honestly, I said, it's not worth it. I said, it's not worth it to take on clients like that, because there's plenty of people who want to do things the right way that will, you know, and I said, and think about the kind of person you're dealing with and the way they're doing business. How do you think they're going to deal with you, right? And he says, oh, but I got the kind of like, oh, but everybody does it kind of defense about it. And I was,
everybody doesn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody doesn't do it. But the problem is there is a mentality out there that it's acceptable to do things this way. And then we as the accountants, and you know, I didn't actually say this, I thought of it after the fact, but you know, I think the reason why accountants are considered by most people to be their most trusted advisors is because we do take integrity very seriously. Are there exceptions? Sure. You know, but I think for the most part we take integrity very seriously in every area, and I think that's why we do end up getting the trust that we enjoy from our clients. You know, and because if you don't have that, you know, it's I'll never forget, you know, all the conversations I've had with, you know, bookkeepers that I've worked with or just met and had conversations about this kind of stuff with, where you know, I told them at the end of the day in the accounting profession, the one thing you have that nobody can take away from you is the trust and the integrity and the fact that, you know, people can rely on you, that you're handling the most sensitive part of their lives, their finances, and that you're not going to do anything shady, and you're not going, you know, our job is to be there to help protect that stuff for people, not compromise it, you know. So whenever I hear of a bookkeeper who ripped off their client, and, you know, especially when the economy goes south, that's when you start seeing it more often. I just shake my head and think to myself, you know, why would you do that? Whatever amount of money you stole, you know, you write yourself checks to cash and you cash them. First of all, it's very easy to trace, but I see this all the time, you know, or I shouldn't say all the time, but more often than I'd like to, and it's going to be found. You know, it's just a matter of time. You're going to get caught. And when you do, you have to add up the amount of money you stole and figure in if the person doesn't press charges. Let's say you get lucky, you walk away with that. You'll never be able to work another day in this business again.
But
and what's that worth?
True. I've seen that in my area where people have embezzled, and the companies don't want to take her to court because they don't want that kind of publicity. They don't want their vendors to know that. They don't want their employees to know that, so they just say, you're fired, and out in the world she goes.
Right.
And on to the next employer.
Who on earth is Suchi?
Oh, she's from School of Bookkeeping.
She's wanting me to join another hangout
Oh, well, let's invite her into this one.
with Tina, Joanne, and 7 others or something. I don't.
Wow, we're missing the whole hangout then.
We're like a hangout inside a hangout.
Yeah.
I
That
will
would be
invite
cool.
her into this one.
So where are they lost? They must be lost. Huh.
I invited her in.
We haven't seen
And
Tina.
Tina, it would be so lovely to see Tina.
I know, we haven't seen her in a while.
In a long time.
See, Tina, where's Tina?
Yeah, and we need business advice from Sammy.
You
You
get what you
get
get.
what you get.
Get what you get. God,
I heard some new business advice from Dawn Brolin that I'm really taking to heart.
Yeah.
Every ball must bounce.
All right, but explain what that means, because you need to have the context.
She was describing her way of handling vendor deposits and actually putting it on the balance sheet and the journal entries and the whole method, and going through that method. She said, you know, I know it's long and complicated. I know that there are clients that are resistant to this, but every ball must bounce, right? I agree with that. I love it.
That's good.
Does
So you have to go and see the QB show. It wasn't this week. I believe it was the week before.
does anybody know about the new advanced online certification? Did you see that yesterday?
Oh, that's coming out at QB Connect.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to miss it. I'll have to wait until it comes out for all of us other people in
You know anything
November.
about it, Seth?
What?
You know anything about the new advanced online certification?
Just that they've rolled it out. I don't know much more than that, and I think it's going to be similar to the desktop advanced certification that you need to be certified. You need the regular certification for a period of time before you can get the. I guess they can't really do that now because nobody's going to have had the. Well, no, maybe the regular QuickBooks certification has been around, so I think you will. It's the same kind of prerequisite where you have to have the regular certification for 2 or 3 years before you can get the advanced one.
It's kind of a backdoor way of getting people to join the ProAdvisor program that have the free online, membership, right? I mean, if you have to have 3 years experience or...
I don't know that the online certification has been happening for 3 years.
Yeah, it hasn't.
It's been around for at least 2, I think, because I got mine this year.
I think I took the test twice, but I might have taken the second one earlier than I needed to, just because I wanted to see the new test.
As I recall, they did an update, so you had to take that. So I've taken it twice. I'm just wondering the value of having an advanced online certification. I mean, they don't have inventory, they don't have job costing, or do they?
Well, you make it on their list at a higher level, the Intuit list, and you may be promoted and may have more clients funneled to you. I have to tell you about my client that I got from the Intuit list this week.
Yeah.
The name of the business was Not Me, Not Today.
What?
I'm wondering, first of all, my first question is this for real, or is somebody trying to trick me?
Right.
Now, did I just get a new kind of crank call, But no, I went with it. I, explained things to the guy, and, he's brand new, setting up his business, and I, started going over some of the things we'd be talking about, one of them being reconciling your bank accounts. Oh, no, I don't want to do that.
Not today, right?
You really want your books to match what's coming in from the bank. How about if the bank makes a mistake? And then he thought about it. Yeah, you got me thinking now. Like, okay, well, you know what?
See ya!
So what type of business was it?
Conference calls. He sets up conference calls for people. So Yeah, yeah. And he may be doing well. I don't know how that relates to that name.
Sounds like an idea of his, yeah.
So I did end my initial conversation with him, and we set up an appointment, and I set up, I always send, before I actually make a virtual appointment, a letter that explains exactly when I'm going to expect the money, and I just figured, you know what, he's paying up front, we'll go with what he's got. And he was very interested in doing things the correct way. We set him up correctly, and we went through all the processes, and he seemed very happy. So you can't really prejudge a client.
You're right.
But I would think the
You're
name
right.
might turn some people off. Like, does this person have an attitude problem?
You reminded me, Gina, of another call I had this week. This has been an interesting week for calls with prospects. Another guy I spoke to, I'm talking to him, and he had apparently, he was keeping track of his inventory outside of QuickBooks and wanted to find out about how to get his inventory working within QuickBooks. And so I get on the phone with him, and the start of the conversation, he says that he used to have it in QuickBooks, but he had a bookkeeper who he eventually found out wasn't, I don't want to say incompetent, but she obviously didn't know how to deal with inventory in QuickBooks. So, but since that, I guess, that bookkeeper went on her way, and he got a new bookkeeper who does know how to do this kind of stuff now. And he starts saying, but I don't like the cost of goods sold method. And I'm thinking, okay, what's the cost of goods sold method? And sometimes I hesitate, like I'm afraid to ask because I'm afraid.
Should I know this? Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing, right? So, but then finally, I'm like, okay, and I had to stop him at one point because he was going on and on for a bit. And I said, hold on, let me stop you there. I said, what are you referring to when you talk about the cost of goods sold method? And and he starts explaining it to me, and it's still not clear. I'm like, okay, let me stop you. I said, let me lay something out for you, and then this way I want to make sure we're on the same page about this. I said, when you buy inventory, you go out, you purchase inventory, that becomes an asset. It's sitting in your warehouse. You own that. There's no cost of goods sold being booked yet. It's only when you sell it that you recognize cost of goods sold because it comes out of your inventory, and this way you're matching up the revenue from the sale with the cost of that inventory, so it's properly matched. And he says, no, I don't like doing it that way. And I said, can I ask why? And he says, because I like it better to be able to see all of the purchases on the P&L. I feel like I can keep track of it better that way. And I said, but do you see the problem here is you're going to stack all your costs in the period where you're buying more inventory, let's say, and then later on when you sell it, you're going to have no costs, let's just say, so you're going to pay all this extra taxes on all this extra income. And I'm trying to explain to him why it's important to do it. And really what he meant to say was he doesn't like the accrual method, right? He just wants to book all his purchases straight to cost of goods sold. And it was just, but the thing was, I couldn't convince him. He says, nope, I just like it this way. I feel like I can manage my numbers better with it. And I'm just thinking, if you were really managing the numbers properly, you would understand why it's so off the way you're doing it. But anyway.
That might help 1 year and trash it in the next year. Yeah.
Well, if you have inventory, don't you have to use accrual?
No.
Not necessarily.
There's some new rules out.
As soon as you have inventory on the books and cost of goods sold, you're supposed to file on the accrual basis. I know you don't.
There's some new rules. There's some new rules on.
There might be there might be like a threshold. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. And it depends on the type of business. Like if I have a business that's a bulk of their revenue is service oriented, but they have sales on the side, maybe like a little gift shop, and it's just such a small part of their whole organization. I mean, there are rules now, but it just makes it more complicated for me because I want to do it right.
I tend to equate cost of goods sold with variable costs.
Mm-hmm.
In figuring out.
I haven't. I'm not up on that right now.
Mm.
I just know it's possible.
I just know that at a certain point you have to kind of fold the towel and say, you know what, I cannot help you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't help you.
More trouble than it's worth.
But I can't tell you how many tax accountants have said, why didn't you do that person's work? And it's good money and you have no liability. I hear that all the time. Well, you have no liability. It's not your problem. And I'm like, it is my problem because when they get caught, I get sucked into it.
Yeah, I agree.
And
with you.
after a couple subpoenas over my career, I'm not going down that road. Now, sometimes you don't really realize until you're, really into the job and you really learn the client, But I've had client, and I have a client now. She's been a great client for many, many years. But somewhere along the line, she decided I'm not going to put benefits on W-2s. So personal use of auto, and they're not trucks, they're autos. Nope, not going to do it. She's all these things that she just refuses to do. And so every year when I do, my checklist for W-2s and 1099s and all that, I actually get her to sign off that she's not asking me to do this. And they don't want to sign it, but, if you don't sign it, then I'm just going to have to go. Because I have to protect myself. Because how do I know I'm not going to... I had a client years ago, an elderly lady, and, great client, and then a lot of cash business. But in the end, when she got audited, she threw me under a bus.
And they do.
She never wanted to do 1099s, and I said, are you doing your 1099s? Yes. Are you hiring somebody else to do it? Yes. But I didn't have it in writing. And we're in front of this auditor, and she goes, Miss Laidlaw never told me I had to.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, but you know what, Sarah? You know what you can do to protect from that is to ask for a copy of the 1099. Say, okay, great, you had somebody else do it. I just need a copy for my records so I know it was done. I mean, I insist on that because I like to have everything archived, because even if it wasn't an audit and being thrown under the bus, at some point somebody's going to come and ask me, hey, did they do 1099s? And I want to be able to provide that to them.
Well, Seth, above and beyond that, the client is really lying to you, and that, to me, is a big problem. You're no longer a trusted advisor if they're lying to you.
Well, that's the other piece of it. I mean, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves. And I've experienced this a lot. It seems like more so the last few years than ever before. And I would expect it would have been the other way around, like when I was less experienced. But I find that I get these clients periodically who, theoretically they've hired me for my expertise, right? So they've hired me because they're saying essentially, you know how to do this thing, you know how to do it really well, so I'm going to hire you to do it for me, and I'm going to trust that you know what you're doing. That's why I'm paying you to do it. And then, so I get hired, I start doing it, and pretty soon they start telling me how I should do what they've hired me to do.
Yeah.
And it goes against what my better judgment is. And I've actually started walking away from clients like that because I'm like, I don't want to get hired and paid so that you can tell me how to do my job. The whole point is I've been doing this for a long time, I know what I'm doing, and then you're going to tell me to do it differently. And not even as much in the accounting side of it as in the other sort of consulting services that I provide to clients is where I'm finding this is happening, particularly when I've been hired by companies to do social media stuff for them. And they'll say, okay, look, I love what you've done with Nerd Enterprises. Can you do that for me? And I'll start doing it for them. And then what happens a lot, it seems, is I'll start doing things the way I've done them for Nerd Enterprises, the way it has proven to work for me, right? I basically take the same strategy and I employ it for them, and I start developing content and doing what I do, and then all of a sudden they say, well, no, we shouldn't do that. You shouldn't post so much on Twitter. You should, and it's like, okay, then don't hire me to do it. Hire somebody else. If because it's a contradiction. They tell me, oh, I like what you're doing. I want you to do that for me, and then I start doing the same thing, and then they say, well, no, I don't want you to do that. And it's like, well, then why'd you hire me, right?
Well, like I said a couple weeks ago or recently, I've written a client handbook about my, how I operate and my attitude on things, and then my engagement letter, it's pretty long, and it has an area about, expectations and I promise that I'll have respect for you, and it lays it out. If you're hiring me for my expertise, I need the respect. I'm open to ideas. I'm not. So I played with the wording for months, and I'm finally happy with it. But I'm going to start off right out of the chute. Here's what I'm about, and if you don't buy into this model, then there's no point moving forward. So, we talk about it, but some people just need to see it laid out and then sign it.
Somebody
agree,
posted a
Sarah.
great
That was the
comment on Facebook this week. I want to say it was Don Brolin. Something to the effect that if they got intimidated by my engagement letter, it means I did my job well.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, my engagement letter was the reason why I accepted the not me, not today client, because it laid it all out, you know, plain as could be. I expect the money up front, then this is what I will provide for you, and it worked out that way. So
that's good.
By the way, we've had some great questions this week in the ABO group on Facebook. So while we're here, I thought maybe we'd talk about some of them. So here, one big conversation that that ensued this week was from Kimberly. I hate to mispronounce people's names, but I guess it's Kazel, C-A-Z-E-L. She says, I upgraded to QBO from desktop, and I can't find where I imported online payments and merchant deposits. Is this no longer available?
I got so tickled at when she wrote upgraded.
Well, and actually, Stacy just commented on that, saying she loves the fact that she used the term upgraded. Look, for some people, it is an upgrade, depending on what you need, and if QBO solves your problems, and you don't need all the robustness that the desktop version offers that QBO doesn't, then for some people, it is.
Obviously, it wasn't very user friendly as far as what she needed to do.
Well, I'm not sure about that because I think it just wasn't clear. First of all, if you go into QBO and you open up an invoice, there's an option right at the top of it to accept the payments. And if you have Intuit merchant services or Intuit online payments, I believe that's what triggers that to turn on. So
there's a whole other thing happening with that too. If you had Intuit Payment Network, does not work with QBO these days, and if you had that in your desktop and had it set up in your desktop and bring it up to QBO, there could be a problem switching to the Intuit payment solutions. There's some kind of setting, issue going on there.
Is that something they're working on?
That's an interesting point because that kind of stuff, is stuff that before you make a switch from something like desktop to QBO, you really have to almost take inventory of the services that you're using. And before you make the switch, make sure that either it's available in QBO or that you can live without it if it's not.
Well, I wish they had named it something else, because the fact that it's still called QuickBooks, people assume that it's just whatever they have now in the cloud.
Yeah, I had that conversation.
And they're not doing their due diligence to find out, and off they go. Whether it's right in the middle of a quarter or a week, and they don't understand payroll. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I think, but it's it's the classic. You know what they say about when you make assumptions. And I get what you're saying. I think when it comes to something as critically sensitive as accounting software, no matter what you're doing, you just have to be so careful. And clients should obviously come to somebody like us who has some knowledge of this and say, hey, what do I need to know before I make a switch like this? Because it's a big one. Right?
Well, they would if they were switching to Sage or Intacct or changing to another program. I think they would naturally go, whoa, it's not the same thing. But the instruction is from the marketing and click here and just go 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 go. It looks like it's the same thing, and then they land there and go, what is this?
Right.
Right, but it is different.
Great move, but the shock of that's not QuickBooks.
Yeah, it is different. It's a. I mean, I understand why people make the assumption because it's called QuickBooks, but it's not called QuickBooks. It's called QuickBooks Online, and
I'm with you, Sarah. I think the assumption is if you're moving from QuickBooks to QuickBooks, it should happen, seamlessly.
If you go from QuickBooks to Enterprise, it looks the same.
Right, but that's just it. And I don't know. It seems to me that if you walk for 5 minutes on the internet and look at QuickBooks Online, it should be pretty apparent pretty quickly that this is a very different looking product, that it's not the desktop product.
Well, the only calls I get about QBO are people that have jumped in and then need help.
Right.
I've yet to find anybody say, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think?
Yeah, see, those are the calls I usually get. Honestly, I usually get those calls. Is, hey, should I switch to Qubio? Do you think it'll work for my business? Is it enough? I mean, most people seem to at least have the sense that QuickBooks Online doesn't do everything the desktop edition does by now.
If I get one, I'll send them to you.
Send them to me.
Now,
So
if you get one that says, should I use nonprofit or QuickBooks for nonprofit? Oh, send them to me.
So the next question that was asked that sparked a big conversation this week was from Todd. Again, I hate to mispronounce names, but I'm going to do my best. And Spock. He just joined the group, and he says, starting up a bookkeeping service, will QuickBooks Pro Online, I love when they say that, QuickBooks Pro Online.
Sure.
It's QuickBooks Pro Online suffice for the first few clients, or should I get the whole $500 QuickBooks program with everything? He's talking about, should I be a pro advisor? So really interesting conversation sparked from that, and of course I think most of us universally agree that of course you should join the Pro Advisor program. He certainly shouldn't just do online unless all he wants to do is cloud, and there are services that specialize in cloud. There's a cloud-sourced accounting which is run by a guy I've become friendly with. His name is Blake Oliver, and all they do is zero. I believe all they do is zero. I want to say maybe he has a couple of QuickBooks Online clients, but with a name like Cloud Sourced Accounting, clearly they're specializing in the cloud, and they're not going to touch a desktop software. So if that's your choice, that's fine. But I think most of us agreed that you should join the Pro Advisor program if you're doing QuickBooks, because that gives you access to all the software. And a couple of comments were made about getting a free company with QuickBooks Online. I want to be clear about that. You get one free company with QuickBooks Online. The intention is for you to use it for your own practice or use it as a sort of test or sample file. I suppose you could give it up and use it for a client if you wanted to, but I think that would be a mistake, in my opinion. The other thing that came up was that if you are a reseller, you can, I didn't know this actually, but as a reseller for Intuit, you can actually get people discounts on the Pro Advisor membership itself. I did not know that.
Oh,
So
I didn't know that. No, I knew.
If you go to that thread at the bottom, actually William English lays out a very nicely detailed sort of write-up on all this stuff, and he mentions the different versions. Some people join the Pro Advisor program like I did years ago just to get the software. You know, I wasn't that worried about getting certified. I've told this story many times. For me, it was more about just getting the software because it's a hell of a lot less expensive to pay $500 than to actually buy each of the programs separately. And certainly, if you get a client in the door who's using enterprise solutions and you haven't paid for the Pro Advisor membership, it's going to be a lot more expensive just to get that. So.
I kind of went the other route. I wanted the training and thought of the software as a bonus.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the conversation on LinkedIn about the guy who had a client that posted thousands of sales receipts instead of undeposited funds that went to his inventory account?
Wow.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's a long conversation. Everybody has ideas, and it won't merge, and you can't change it, and all this. And so he was able to. I never did quite figure out because of course, in the P&L, the sales receipt side is good, but the deposits aren't. And I'm thinking, well, with the reclass, you can at least get your P&L right. But he really wanted to go back and change all the entries. So we went around for about 2 days, and then he pops in and says that somebody recommended Carl Irwin's
Data transfer.
It's not the norm. It's not the one that we use all the time. It's Mass Updater. He has one, $79. It's like Mass Updater. Wow, I want that in my toolbox.
You could. I was thinking Transaction Pro Deleter, that you would just use that to delete all the transactions and then re-import them.
No, he said he just pulled up all the sales receipts, said change it from this account to this account, and boom, he was done.
Couldn't you do that in the Accountants Edition with the reclassify?
No, not with apparently not with the inventory account.
Huh.
The items.
Yeah, I don't know. It's where the payment side of the sales receipt posts. You couldn't do it.
By the way, my favorite new QuickBooks feature lately is the batch enter transactions.
Oh, me too, me too, me too.
I've just fallen in love with it. I've had several projects this year that involve reconstruction of 2013, and so I just have them give me the CSV files from all the banks and credit cards, and it just makes it so nice. I sit there and massage the data in Excel, so I get the QuickBooks payee exactly matching what it looks like in QuickBooks, and same with the account, and then I just copy and paste in the Excel file and get it all organized. So about 1 to 2 hours, because there's a lot of transactions in some cases, but 1 to 2 hours of prep work in Excel, and then I can copy and paste it into QuickBooks in like 30 seconds, and then the reconciliations are a snap because everything's based on the date that it cleared, so you're just, reconciling it and clicking mark all for each month, and it all reconciles beautifully. The only exception is
that's because of your massaging of the Excel file, Seth.
Well, yeah, you have to do that to make sure that
And
the
that's where
payees
you
are.
Excel.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Did I tell you how I'm using it? This is just I can't tell you how cool this is. I drank the Kool-Aid for Smart Sheets.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a client, like 8 company credit cards. They don't want to do anything online. They don't want to expensify, and so we have handwritten forms, some are in spreadsheets. I can't read the handwriting. So we would download it from the credit card company, so at least that would come in. But then you're reading the reports to figure out where to post it, what memo you want, what class code, blah, 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 right? Hours and hours and hours. So I got them on board with Smart Sheets for payroll and payables and all kinds of other transmittal type, how we're going to do business with each other. And I said, well, I have this idea. So I took a Smart Sheet and I made a drop-down button. We'll say I have like date. I have a drop-down field for the vendor, and I copied and pasted the entire vendor list in it. So they can start just, ST and Staples is right there. And then a comment for the memo. And then I dropped in the entire chart of accounts, and I deleted out all the accounts that they would never post to. And the class list, and then a comment field for anything weird. And I have a column with a little flag, like heads up. I called it heads up. And I made the first row the grand total so they can just add at the bottom and not worry about inserting. Anyway, so I tried this, and the employees went nuts. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then their supervisor could come in and approve it. They can attach a PDF of all the receipts, and then the supervisor can come in and just approve the whole sheet. So on our end, and this is funny because I had explained it to the bookkeeper exactly what we were going to do, and she still downloaded all those credit card charges out of habit. So she said, "Okay, I'm ready to do this." And first in Smart Sheets, we cleaned up some of the coding, just the obvious stuff. But I said, "Wait a minute, the charges are already here. We're going to use batch enter." And so we actually had to, we took one as a sample and deleted out everything that she downloaded. I said, okay, so watch this. Download the Smart Sheet in Excel. It's already in the right order. And take out the column for the flag and the comments and all that. And copy and paste instantly. Boom. And in red is anything that doesn't exist. Like maybe it's a new account, or maybe they just a new vendor and all that. And then look at the entire sheet and just edit the whole sheet, and then in one button it's posted. I can't tell you the hours that's going to save.
Yep. It's so cool. And by the way, massaging the data, Gina, is only a matter of just looking at the payee information that came in the CSV file and putting the same payee as it appears in QuickBooks. There's not that much, it's just copy and paste. It's nothing sophisticated at all. And then what I do, Sarah, by the way, along the lines of what you described, so that I don't even get the things in red, is while I'm massaging the data in Excel, I actually have the, bye Gina, I actually have the, or Jesse's leaving. Bye, Jesse.
Bye.
Bye. I have to run to another meeting.
Have fun. Tell them we said hi. So I actually have the batch enter screen open in QuickBooks while I'm working in Excel, so that if there's a new payee, first I check, right? And if I pull up the payee in the batch enter screen in QuickBooks, and then I copy and paste that into one of the lines in Excel, so I have it exactly as it appears in QuickBooks. Because if you have a typo, then it's going to think it's a different one, and you're going to end up adding something you don't really want.
Right.
So this way, I make sure that I get them into Excel exactly as they appear in QuickBooks. Then it's just a copy and paste down for all, because I have it sorted by payee, so I just quickly copy that down for all the ones that came from that same vendor. And I do the same thing with the account. And now if it's not in QuickBooks, then I type it up in Excel exactly as I want it to appear in QuickBooks, copy and paste that into the just the payee column, and hit the tab key so that QuickBooks prompts me to add it, and I just do a quick add for a vendor,
Right.
So that way, by doing it that way and just doing the copy and paste real quick, by the time I'm ready to drop it in, everything conforms. So it's, again, just copy, paste into the Excel dialog, and save transactions. And I always just confirm that it's giving me the right, because in the bottom of the dialog in QuickBooks, it will give you the total, or in the case of a credit card, it'll say, here's the total charges, here's the total credits, based on what's positive, what's negative. So I just confirm the amounts, and then once they agree to what's on my spreadsheet, I know I'm done. Boom. And I just love it.
See, my thing is, when my bookkeepers are doing all the compiling, but when I come in to review and I read a detailed general ledger, I like my memos. And when you're downloading transactions, even if it lands in the right place, you may not get the information that you need, to make sure, is it in the right place? What's going on? Is it the right period? So we tend to still touch and feel every credit card charge or bill, even though we're importing and all that. So, I guess we all have different approaches to.
Yeah, I don't mind
How we
doing
want our general ledger to look, but.
I don't mind doing the downloads because I still have a review process where I run the P&L and balance sheet and I drill into every account line by line on either a monthly or quarterly basis. And then I drill into account and total it by P, make sure all the payees look like they belong in that account, and I do that process usually with the client so that they can comment on things that I wouldn't know about and so on. So I don't mind doing the download. I still feel like that saves time. But I know what you mean. And now that I am doing the batch enter, I almost feel like I want to stop doing the download and just get the CSV files and cut it up the way I do and use the batch enter all the time. So is that where you're kind of going with that?
Yeah. In the end, it's a lot faster to look at a spreadsheet of information versus dealing transaction by transaction. Yeah.
Well, and using something like Smartsheet, or you could even do it in Google Sheet, to make it collaborative, so you could have the client come in and confirm things. It's just huge. It does save so much time when you do it that way.
They're doing they're responsible for all their budget accounts and everything, and it really gives them more hands-on. And then, there's a couple of us that can, come in and tweak.
I smell a new video coming on, a collaboration between Seth and Sarah and the batch.
The problem is it's really hard to demonstrate that without live data, and you can't use live data for obvious reasons. I mean, that's why the videos I'm doing right now, Eric mentioned in the group this week that I'm working on something top secret regarding Transaction Pro Importer.
Yeah.
It's not so top secret anymore. It never really was. But the problem I'm having, or I shouldn't say the problem I'm having, but what's slowing the process down is the only way to demonstrate it is to use live data. So in the video editing part, I have to be so careful to make sure that all the information that needs to be blurred out is blurred out. And so I'm watching this stuff replay like 6 times to be absolutely certain. Because I've done things in the past where, in my own videos, I was like hiding my client list, let's say, that appeared in a certain part of the video, and I wasn't careful, and like one client name will appear, and I wasn't that worried about that. But one time it was funny, somebody made a comment on the video on YouTube because they clearly saw that a client's name had gotten revealed, and they wrote like WTF, and then they wrote the name of the client,
Oh, yeah.
So it was like they were calling me out on the fact that they
gotta watch that social media.
Yeah, you gotta love that. Well, you gotta. That's where I just gotta say, God bless the trolls, who have nothing better to do with their time. But it's with this, I am being like 10 times extra careful. There will be nothing, revealed because it is live data and it is.
I could use I'm real good at coming up with ideas and unique ways to doing things, but I'm lousy. I wouldn't know how to do a video. I could use sample data to show this.
If you could make the sample data, I can do the video. I just don't have the time, frankly, or the patience to create the sample data.
Right.
And it really has to be very true to what it looks like when it's actually downloaded from the credit card companies, because otherwise people are going to, that's the only way I know for sure that the video is really going to be helpful. It has to be familiar.
You're dealing with downloading. I'm talking about starting from scratch where the clients actually.
No, when I say download, I'm talking about downloading the CSV file.
Yeah. Your example, I can see the problem. With mine, I don't have to worry about that. I could use sample data. Matter of fact, when I set up the workspace for all the credit cards, I have a sample Visa sheet so the employees could look at it and play with it and see how it works.
I'm thinking this is a good idea, Seth.
Sarah, if you make the data, I'll make the video.
Okay.
And I'll give you full credit, and
Actually,
we'll make sure that we advertise your company in the video.
Didn't we have a shared ABBO smart sheet?
Yeah, that's shared with the whole group. Yep.
Yeah, I think there's. I'll put one in there too.
Cool.
Just, all right, things to do. All right, I have to go get presentable because I actually have a client to work with.
I have to go get my car smog checked and then renew my registration.
Yeah, that's another benefit of being on the East Coast. Except that there are some clunkers on the road, though.
Well, the funny thing is having a hybrid vehicle smog checked.
Yeah,
it's already about as clean a vehicle as you'll get, short of getting a Tesla, which is all electric. That's funny. Electric. On that note, I'm out. I'll see y'all. Gina, we'll see you this afternoon, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern.
And you get what you get.
Okay.
Get what you
Get
get.
what you get.
See you, Gina.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.